Hi, this is a very personal video, which I do occasionally. It's 2020, we've just had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which actually occurs roughly on my midheaven, about 2 degrees or so past my midheaven, I believe. So it's pretty strongly active for me. As you might know, a bit over 2 years ago, my husband passed on from incarnation, and obviously I still have to deal with all this means to me. And that's important. It's important to actually be true to these things. One thing I really know, and which has really come back to me, is that I am a witch first and foremost. It's what me and my husband shared, both before and after we became Satanists, and though we called ourselves warlocks after we became Satanists. Oh, actually a little bit before we became Satanists, we actually adopted that term. But I am a witch, and there are a lot of things which are very important to me and very necessary for me. One of them is healing, and the subject of healing, and the other is a kind of holistic magic, which is part of the picture. And this is very different to black magic. It's very different to the sort of magic we talk about in Satanism. Black magic is really the origins of science and art. It's a tremendously important thing for us, it really is. And it's important to understand this, and it does very much relate to part of the nature of this world. If one wants to get a certain kind of mastery of it, as for instance one needs to do if one is fending off an illness at short notice, which could otherwise be very, very serious. Things like modern medicine are essentially black magic. There's nothing holistic about them. It's not holistic, and neither is black magic holistic. The nature of this world is important. The nature of the material world, the world out there as we would see it, and as we experience it as separately identified beings in separate bodies. Nevertheless, our source is a holistic reality, which goes beyond this world. And both these things are very important if one is a witch or a magician. And they're very important for human beings. The balance between these two things is quite vital for magic. If one simply goes towards the holistic and that kind of source in those things, you get a rather New Age kind of view of magic, which is very lovely, very healing, but which is not ultimately effective enough. We don't notice that because we're so used to having the fruits of what I call black magic in terms of modern science, modern medicine, and all these things. So we don't notice But understanding those things is very, very important if you want an effective form of magic. But if you go too far into the holistic, that's not what you get. You get something which is actually rather diluted. Nice, but diluted and ineffective, and it leaves you ill-prepared for the world, both philosophically and also magically. On the other hand, when you are oriented towards this world is a battle. This world is a war, and you are a warrior in this war, and black magic has some of this quality to it. This is a necessary thing, but at the same time one has to understand that the consciousness of this has to be dealt with clearly and in a disciplined fashion, because it can obsess people. Its nature is dominating. Its nature is to control and to overpower and dominate, because that's what life will do to you if you are not careful. Quite clearly that's so. So it is an appropriate answer to this world, but it is not an appropriate answer to the entirety of our consciousness as beings. Dealing with this is very, very important. Now, it is a possible tendency in people to rather polarize these two areas of magic. So one finds that the more holistic and rather new age types of magic that probably look upon themselves, whether they use the term or not, as white magic, will demonize black magic, will demonize this highly effective form of magic which is adapted to this world and its nature. Now, and on the other hand, black magic, which has such a strong tendency to dominate, can close a person down and shut them off from their source, from their healing, from these sorts of things, and it in its turn can demonize or overly ridicule the other end of the spectrum. But these two things are all part of one thing, ultimately. And this, I think, has its best summation as a form of paganism. There we can find a better understanding, in a sense, or a good understanding of an overall view. Naturally, there are people who practice a holistic form of magic who also have an awareness of the validity and need for what I'm calling black magic. And similarly, there are black magicians, Satanists, Setians, etc., who have a perfectly good understanding of the need for balance and the need for healing and holism in their place, which is in fact a very big place, though an unfocused one in some senses. But what I realize is that there's a deep need in me for these two things to find their right places in my life. And in that sense, I find a very great need to reinvestigate the holistic in that way. My little dog is just sleeping there. Just had a little sigh. But of course without losing the key place of the demonic. And this is why I called the Summer Thunder blog Nature and the Infernal, really quite some time ago. It becomes clearer to me though, and clearer magically. And the need for the holistic is great in my life. The need for healing is very great. And the need to be able to practically live for something beyond myself. Especially now that in terms of myself, I am really waiting for being able to rejoin my husband, but that won't happen for some time, I suspect. So anyway, I just wanted to make this little video note about these things that have been occurring to me. Thanks for watching. Bye.